You tell me when we're on. Oh, what's up, hotheads and political junkies? You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah Vandermeer, editor of Cannabis Culture magazine, here with Duchess, the three-footer, my glorious bong. Duchess, how are you today, sweetheart? It's time for a bong rip straight off the top of the show. Very nice, delicious. Well, good to have you guys here. It is Friday. What is it today, actually? Friday the 22nd of June. And today on the show we have Roger Larry, the director of an upcoming film called Citizen Marc, which is about Marc Emery and Jody Emery. And actually, Roger has been following Marc and Jody around for a long time. He's actually been here for like 10 years or some ridiculous thing, following them around getting footage. So it should be very interesting to see what he comes up with and what the film actually covers. We have a few little rumors about it, but hopefully he'll give us some insider info on exactly what's in the movie today. He is expected here anytime, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully he does show up. But before then, we're going to cover a little bit of news here. I think we'll have Al the Alchemist on to quickly tell us about something happening in the cannabis science world. And I'm going to hit the bong a few more times, definitely before 420. So, Al, I don't know, do you want to come up straight off the top here and talk, brother? All right, let's do this. Marius, do you think you can handle, do you want to just come on and talk straight up, or do you want to do it the two of us here? Because we can pull the camera out.
All right.
Pull the camera out, might as well. We got two mics set up. Al the Alchemist, how you doing, brother? Good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
That's right.
All right, well, there's some new things going on in cannabis medicine, and what I wanted to talk to you guys about is we're doing a bit of a clinical research on cannabis juice. There's some right here. Have it mixed with a little bit of apple lime juice and some water. So what's happened is a friend of mine has secured the capabilities of producing roughly 4 to 5 gallons of cannabis juice a week. And we're looking at taking on a few different categories of ailments. So we're looking for people that suffer from HIV or AIDS, cardiovascular disorders, any form of cancer or tumor disorder, and spastic or seizure disorders. So if you have any of these, or if you have a friend or loved one that has any of these ailments, you can basically drop us a line at applicant@yaletownmedicaldispensary.com. So you can apply there. Unfortunately, we won't be able to help the world right now. We're taking on 50 to 100 test subjects. And primarily we want to look for people that are extremely affected by these ailments, for one, but also can't be doing things that are psychoactive. There are lots of alternatives for people that don't mind getting stoned or having the euphoric side effects that come with medicating with cannabis. But the juice is non-psychotropic, and we're looking for people that do not want to experience those symptoms and have been avoiding cannabis medicine specifically because of those side effects. So what we're offering is hopefully a little bit of hope. I'm not going to say it's going to cure this or cure that, because that's a little irresponsible. But I think it could help a lot of people. And once again, if you're interested or have a friend or loved one that's interested, applicant@yaletownmedicaldispensary.com.
Awesome.
And that's that.
Excellent. Thanks, Al. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, we're going to be offering in two forms. Freeze-dried, which will be in basically like cryo-frozen ice cube packs, kind of like they market wheatgrass right now. And also, sorry, that's cryo-frozen. And also freeze-dried, which will be actual like dried powder in a capsule form. So if you're scared about the flavor and stuff, you can try the capsules, and if you don't mind the juice, we'll get you on the juice. So hit us up at applicant@yaletownmedicaldispensary.com, and hopefully we can help some people and get some positive results for Health Canada to review.
How did all this get started, Al?
Well, somebody actually asked us on the From Under the Influence show if we knew anything about the health benefits of raw cannabis juice and the actual leaf.
Right.
So that kind of led me to look into a few things. Now I have some friends involved in hemp and stuff like that. So I contacted a couple people and just inquired about the possibilities of expanding the hemp market and not just having it for fiber or for protein. So this opened the mind of a few influential people, and here we are at the cusp of something new.
Awesome, man.
That's
Well, it's a cool study. It sounds like it's going to be interesting. I hope you guys come up with some information that's helpful. And I guess we'll keep people posted out there with what's going on.
Exactly.
Is there a time frame? How long do people have to get in touch with you guys about this?
Again, we're only taking on 50 to 100 test subjects, so we're very limited, and we're going to be pretty selective. So we just encourage everybody over the next 30 days to get their information out to us, and we'll start reviewing the applicants and make our selections from there.
Cool, man. Excellent.
All right.
Well, awesome. Thanks for coming on,
Thanks
man.
for having
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Definitely. We'll keep everybody posted.
And here's some juice if you want to have a shot. I'll go grab a glass.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, a glass would be excellent. We should take a shot of that on the show for sure. So one of our guests, Roger Larry, just walked in, but we'll bring him up in a sec. And I just wanted to go over one news item before we do bring Roger up here, and that's about Uruguay. Uruguay. The politicians in Uruguay are actually moving forward with something really great. It sounds amazing. I really hope that we see some positive results from all this as well. I'm just going to read you the headline here. This is MSNBC. Uruguay aims to legalize overseas marijuana market. Uruguay's government unveiled, and this is a Reuters story, Uruguay's government unveiled a proposal to legalize and monitor the marijuana market, arguing that the drug is less harmful than the black market when it is trafficked. Or, yes, where it is trafficked. Sorry. President Joe Mujica's leftist government will send a bill to Congress shortly on this as part of a package of measures to fight crime in the South American country. The government will also urge that marijuana sales be legalized worldwide. Defense Minister Eleuterio Fernandez Huidoboro said, wow, that's quite the name, adding the measure could discourage the use of so-called hard drugs. Marijuana consumption is already legal in Uruguay. So now they want to regulate the system, have stores. I didn't really realize how far Uruguay had come. Obviously, we don't really talk about it a lot on the show. Has anybody been to Uruguay here? It doesn't sound like it. Yeah, now we're going. Maybe we'll plan a trip down there for Pod TV. So this is actually really great. And here's another quote from one of the ministers. We want to fight against two different things. One is drug consumption and the other is drug trafficking. We think a ban on certain drugs is creating more problems in society than the drug itself. So these are great and really informative words from these guys. It's great that they're telling the rest of the world in this sort of brazen way that we should legalize. And they're also encouraging, they say outright that they're encouraging the other countries to adopt this. So that's fantastic. And right in the United States, actually, there's a few things happening. I think we did talk about it a little bit on the show last week. Rhode Island has decriminalized marijuana. The governor there, Lincoln Chafee, has now signed the decriminalization bill, making the law, I guess what it is now, $150 for a fine if you're busted with less than an ounce, and you get 3 strikes, and then it becomes a misdemeanor. So it's better than the system that was there. I guess they still have a long way to go. I'm not the biggest fan of decriminalization. I would like to see it legalized outright, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, in New Hampshire, the governor there, Governor John Lynch, has vetoed a bill that would legalize the home cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes. And this was as promised. He expected to do this. Everybody expected him to do this. The bill would have allowed patients with debilitating medical conditions or the patient's designated caregiver to cultivate and possess up to 6 ounces of marijuana, 4 mature plants, and 12 seedlings at a registered location. But he axed that bill. And I was reading to you from an Associated Press article a little bit there. And yeah, so that happened. Also this week, Obama used his executive privilege order to shield his Attorney General, Eric Holder, from questions in the Fast and Furious scandal about gun walking down to Mexican drug cartels. The U.S. government was caught giving guns to the cartels by the thousand, and the Justice Department said, we had nothing to do with it. They were caught lying. Holder's minions were caught with their signatures on wiretaps that showed they did know about the gun walking operation. So the Congress had questions for Holder, wanted to hold him in contempt. A select committee of the Congress actually held him in contempt, found him in contempt, cited him, and they now suggest that the whole Congress do the same. But in the last hours, right before he was actually cited by that committee for contempt, Obama came forward and said, well, he doesn't have to answer any questions because he has executive privilege. Well, they went ahead and cited him with contempt anyways, but it was a move by Obama to try and shield him. We'll see what happens with the rest of the Congress. I do have a video that I wanted to play for you guys about that. We'll see if we have a chance to play that before the end of the show here. Not sure if we will, but if not, maybe we can play it after. Now, actually, I forgot to tell you guys, after my show today, Paparazzi will have a special broadcast. There'll be a special edition of Paparazzi right after this show. Marius, were you trying to move the camera? Because I'm going to bring Roger on right now. So those were my news items. That's all I wanted to say. Roger, you want to come on up here, brother?
Sure.
That's that joint. Are you smoking? If you don't want to,
No
it's okay.
comment.
All right, okay, here we go. So, Roger, good to have you on the show.
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Always good to see you. Now, for those who don't know, you've been sort of a part of this family for a long time, following Marc and Jody around, really, for how long now?
Since March 2006, I think, is when we, well, I know that's when we started.
Right.
We first shot Marc giving a speech at the University of British Columbia that month.
So I was exaggerating a little bit with my 10 years, but...
It feels like it. It feels like many more. It feels like 20. It's been, it's been fascinating, but it's also been, it's been tough. It's tough to make a feature documentary. It's tough to make especially one that, when I first started making the documentary, it was actually, I had just created the documentary curriculum at the Art Institute of Vancouver. And I had rewatched the canon of documentary films, and I was struck by what some of my favorites were, like Hoop Dreams, the 7-Up films, like 28 Up,
right,
42 Up. And they call those documentaries longitudinal documentaries. Like Hoop Dreams follows two kids playing basketball in the inner city in, I believe, Philadelphia over a 10-year span. And it's really exciting. It's a powerful thing, and it's something that only a certain kind of documentary could do. And I was looking for a subject that was compelling enough, that could occupy our attention, that could hold a 2-hour documentary, and also had a story...
Sorry.
Also had a story about
everybody.
also had a story about that evolved over time. So originally, I was going to do a documentary about Vancouver's drug laws and about the 4 pillars approach and how Vancouver was becoming a vanguard for policy around the world.
With the help of guys like Donald McPherson.
And I was looking at possibly profiling someone like him. I was looking for subjects like that. And then I happened upon Marc. And of course, it was kind of...
You found your subject.
Yeah, it was a kind of, a certain, as far love of subject at first sight.
Right. I just wanted to say happy 420 out there. It's 420. We should probably take a bong rip here. I hope you don't mind me puffing down here while we're on the show.
You go.
Do a lot of smoking on the show.
I love it. It's entertaining. And that was the thing that struck me about Marc at once, was that both he had this really interesting and smart politics, and he was also just endlessly interesting and entertaining.
Yeah, he is. He's entertaining for sure
and compelling. And so I started in March 2006, and I was finishing another feature film at that point called Crossing, a gangster feature film, which has since come to Canadian theaters and sold around the world. And while I did TV shows for hire after that and a couple of other things, a comedy series, and I would keep making this Marc doc because I knew I didn't want to just shoot for 3 months or whatever. Yeah. I wanted to get that span of time. And the funny thing was, at first, Marc was, Greg's out there, you'll remember this, Greg. At first, you had to really compete for Marc's attention. There was another documentary crew yes. Who made a wonderful documentary that came out in 2007 called The Prince of Pot, which I urge you all to see. I think it's an excellent outline of Marc's story from the point of view of the 2005 bust and the geopolitics involved. I think he nails that. It's very entertaining. Yeah, everybody should get it. Nick Wilson, I interviewed him for my film. We bought lots of footage from Nick, and it was great. But it was tough because you had to fight for these other...
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's a lineup of people. Often when Marc was here, seriously, there'd be a lineup of people waiting to see him out the door, just down into the store, and he's handing out, bong rips to people and stuff.
And interviews to journalists. 60 Minutes was also, in the process of doing a story. I think they worked on a story. It was like 6 months of, all told, that they worked on the story. And so it was very difficult. I was even prohibited from filming for 3 months because Nick Wilson had an exclusive.
Oh, really?
That summer, except public events. So, I got to go to the wedding because it was thankfully public.
Right.
And the other interesting thing is that, I've always loved Marc's marijuana politics. But I disagreed with him about his libertarian politics. I'm not the only one in the marijuana movement who is suspicious of libertarian politics.
You're a progressive, right?
I'm a progressive. I'm a lefty capitalist. I believe in the welfare state. I believe in taxes. I think paying taxes are a badge of citizenship.
Healthcare.
You should be proud of that pays for healthcare. It pays for teachers. And I'm very suspicious of corporations and plutocrats, the people who own most of the corporations, who I don't hate. In fact, I come from those people. I love them. They're my people. That's why I know them so well, and that you can't trust them in that way. Anyway, so that's my next movie. It's called The Great Middle Class Swindle. So Marc and I immediately had disagreements and at the same time tremendous agreements. And I think that people out here watching this and think, they're looking forward to the film. I hope this is what you're going to get when you see the film. Is that in a sense, the film is this back and forth between Marc and I. But even more so, really, what I do is we put Marc out there and we ask people, should we care that he's in jail or not? The film is not just geared towards people watching right now who are pro-marijuana and think marijuana should be legalized, which I do. I believe marijuana should be completely legalized. And the film's politics reflect that. But that's not the center of the film. The center of the film is Marc, overall, politics, personality, tactics, everything. And not just marijuana issue, but going back to his early libertarian activism in the early 80s in London, Ontario. Mm-hmm. We have some amazing archival footage from another documentary called Messing with the System.
Right. Great documentary.
Great documentary.
Yeah, Marc had a career as an activist long before he did any kind of pot activism at all, or had even heard about marijuana, really.
Yeah, and even though I disagreed with almost all the issues he worked on in the 80s, I am so impressed with his work as an activist. I mean, it's just, Marc is a genius of political theater. And I mean that, I'm hoping that this is something that we'll all be arguing about with my movie when you see it. But I hope one thing that does come clear, and that one part of what the movie does, is that the film has a great deal of respect for Marc Emery's ability to accomplish things politically, make tangible, I think that his impact on marijuana, on Canada as a jurisdiction, in terms of marijuana laws and particularly enforcement, BC, that I think that no one has had a bigger influence. I think that his legacy is massive, and right here, in Vancouver particularly, it would be a very different city, I believe, if he had not been here doing what he had done. Other people, there's other journalists. My background is journalism as well as feature filmmaking, and I worked at the CBC a ton, not everybody completely agrees with this, but having looked at the facts closely over a long period of time, looked at not just his own actions, which were fabulous, things like the Summer of Legalization tour, and he where he smoked pot at the in front of police stations across Canada in order to test the new marijuana legal condition, because the marijuana laws in Canada had been thrown out. So he went out to test them.
Constitutional, right?
Yeah,
and Summer of Legalization.
Yeah. And 2003. Right. And he, there's all that activism, but there's also him financing the court cases previously, working with important people who also have a huge legacy, like Alan Young, professor at the University of Toronto, who was also involved in this recent important decision around prostitution laws.
That's right.
Huge impact.
I think he's been one of the most successful. You don't really hear about activists ever in the media. It's very, very hard for any activist to get any kind of media attention at all. Like, rarely do you hear about any, doesn't matter which, a progressive activist, any type of activist, really. But it was always remarkable to me how Marc was so successful at getting that media attention and getting very positive media attention. For the most part, I think there's a few people who attack Marc here and there, but the media loves Marc. And it's changed over time.
Sure, and some of those people are in my movie.
Yeah, they do. Now they really do love Marc. And, they've been a big help, I think, in getting Marc's message out there. But he's been able to sort of be so lovable that they can't not. And I think Jody's sort of helped that as well, where before there may have been a lot of criticism of Marc in the media, the Jody element has sort of softened some of that, I think.
I agree, and I think that not everybody thinks Marc is lovable.
That's true.
I think that part of his power as a political performer and part of his effectiveness is tied into the fact that ultimately he's an iconoclast. And so he is willing to piss people off.
Yeah,
like nobody's business.
Other people hold sacred.
Yes, and do it with real style. A great storyteller. And I think that one of the things that I'm proud of in the film is the way that the film brings that out, and we tell that part of the story. But we also, we ask the questions about, does he go too far? Is it too much? We give him, a hell of a hard time about the right-wing stuff in the 80s. And, I always worry that, he's going to come out of jail, stop working to legalize pot, and start working for Ron Paul full-time, which is horrifying to me, right? Because he is so effective. Right. And one of the questions that a lot of people ask is, why does Marc do it? Is Marc in it for himself because of the ego stuff, or is he fighting for the cause? And these are the questions that we ask in the film. These are questions that I still wrestle with. But one question I don't wrestle with is that Marc has really made a great contribution to certainly Canada, if not the world, in terms of moving the cause of marijuana legalization forward.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah, no, this should be interesting. And so, can you tell us when this film is due to actually see the light of day?
Well, I can tell you that we're very close, and that we hope to be releasing the film to festivals this fall.
Yeah. And
that's the timeline we're currently working on, and that there are certain things beyond our control. That and again, this is since after 6 years of making it. But we're darn close we're just polishing things up now,
Right.
trying to get it. We're dealing with footage going back to 1979, and so it's very difficult sometimes. And we're making this is a theatrical documentary. It's already pre-sold to Super Channel. It's also pre-sold to a worldwide distributor that will that is going to take it out theatrically in Canada, so it'll be coming to theaters.
Like how many theaters do you know?
Oh, we have no idea. It depends on how well we do at festivals, but it's very unusual. We're probably the only documentary right now in Canada that hasn't been released, that isn't finished, that has a theatrical pre-sale. That's very unusual. There may be another one out there or not. Right. But that is, I'm willing to take credit for part of that, but I got that deal based on a 5-minute clip, which just let Marc do his thing. I showed them 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of the film, about 2 years ago, and they said, "That's a theatrical documentary. We're interested in this. This guy is totally compelling. We want to know more. We want to see this movie." And
so you got to give Marc some of the credit there.
More than some. More than some. He is, and Jody too. Oh my gosh, she's a movie star. What do you see her in the movie? She opens the film. She is so spectacular in the opening film. It starts with a press conference. I won't say which one, where Jody is speaking, and she is just, oh my gosh,
I can't wait to see some of the film.
Yeah.
I heard there was some sort of a screening of just a family
Yeah,
thing
well,
or something.
we're screening it now. You see, this is the funny thing. Because it's a theatrical film, I'm cutting the film, I'm editing the film on a big television set. But that just doesn't do it. Because when you're composing for the big screen, and especially when you're dealing with all this archival footage that looks like crap, some of it, you got to see it on the big screen as you're making it.
Wow.
So we're doing these screenings now where it's just internally right now, because we're
on the big screen
and trying to tune the images and the sound, etc., etc.
Yeah.
We also have done a bunch of small, I've tested the film with people that I respect and like and have watched the film, and so we've gotten some great feedback as well. So we tried to, get whatever bumps out of the thing are in, and we went through a lot of cuts. I'm making it with my wife, who has a different point of view again from me. She agrees about the marijuana politics, and she also would even, I think, agree about Marc's contribution as far as marijuana goes. But she's, I think, perhaps less sympathetic than she is to him, and in a way the film is partly our discussion of Marc over the last 6 years. Huh. And she's an English professor at the University of British Columbia, and so I think that this is going to be a film that also is going to have broad appeal to a lot of different people, to the people within the marijuana community, to people that are interested in the phenomena of the Tea Party and libertarianism in North America right now, who are interested in also, in the time of Occupy, are interested in somebody like Marc, who is amazing at practicing civil disobedience, and who is able to use civil disobedience in a really profound way to create political change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the sacrifice of using himself as a sacrifice, basically.
Well, this is the thing that I feel very keenly, too, is that I feel very keenly the fact that he's in jail, and that he really, I personally feel we all owe him a debt, and that he suffers, and that his suffering contributes to our freedom.
Agreed.
So thank you, Marc.
Yeah.
And thanks for letting me make the movie. It was kind of actually at first, Marc was sort of, I like that Nick Wilson guy better.
Really? Yeah.
But I didn't mind. I'm a journalist. I didn't, like Marc and I are colleagues, close colleagues. But, it was...
You've been here a lot. You've seen a lot. I'm really intrigued, or I'm just wondering what's going to make it in and what's not. I mean, how many hours of footage do you have of this place? How much have you shot?
I've shot about 100 hours of footage over 6 years. And then in addition to that, I'm drawing on films of people like Daniel Goutreau, and Nick Wilson, the filmmaker behind Messing with the System, whose name will come back to me in a second, who also wrote an amazing play about Marc Emery.
Right, I don't have
that we got our. That's terrible because he's died, and it'll come back to me in a second.
Yeah.
Greg, who made Messing with the System? This is terrible. We have to give him his due. He's a great filmmaker who died. He made a play on. He wrote a play called Citizen Marc, which inspired our title.
Right, I was going to ask.
And we bought footage from. From him, and all those filmmakers are great debt. And we're actually talking to the University of British Columbia about trying to get all this material, the stuff we shot, as well as all these other filmmakers' stuff, and anything you guys have, into a special archive at the university on local drug war history with the Marc Emery focus. Christopher Jodie, thank you. May he rest in peace. We couldn't have made the film without him. If you're watching, Chris, thank you. The other thing I want to say, though, it's like the film is very much about Marc, but I also want to say that one of the things that is amazing to me about this place and being around this place over all this time is the team, and particularly people that have also taken a bullet like Greg Williams, who's over there, and Michelle Rainey, may she rest in peace, who were first arrested with Marc in 2005.
That's right.
Co-accused, and again had put themselves on the line in the same way, and also and then people like yourself and Dana Larson that are out there, that are now, and Jody, really, and Jacob Hunter, who are out there on the front lines now as Marc is in jail, and are the vanguard of this political movement, and are really, I think you guys are doing a great job, and you're pushing the agenda forward, and I think that that's really interesting, and I think it's also interesting that a lot of you guys also are progressives, and so that you can have these disagreements with Marc about politics, and I think they're important disagreements, and let's hope he just keeps working on pot.
Well, and here's an interesting thing that I've noticed with Marc, that when you really press him on some of his very principled stands, his very principled libertarian stands, about things like healthcare, for instance, or even about things like public transit. Well, when you really push Marc on those things, he's a lot more progressive than you think, and a little less libertarian.
I think he's shifting that way.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Oh, well, he says that people shouldn't have to pay to ride the bus. It should be a thing that the government covers. That sounds pretty...
Okay, hold on a second. This is like seriously newsflash. That is like, so he is... I've always hoped that the prison experience, because he had a really... my film really stops when he gets into prison. But there is an amazing story to be told by another filmmaker, or someone, about what's happened to Marc while he's been in jail.
The private prison system.
The private prison system. He gets into that Georgia jail. He kicks butt.
Yeah.
Right? Wackenhut.
Yeah, it's crazy that they actually moved him out of that prison, basically because he was exposing all the bad things they were doing.
And organizing the inmates to stand up for their rights. And
Marc, you just can't stop the guy no matter what you do.
He got the warden fired. The warden was fired, and the vice president in charge of prisons for Wackenhut had to move to the prison from his, luxurious Miami abode.
James was the big one that he really stirred the shit up there. And if you type in D-Ray James online, you'll get all Marc's stories right away. It's the top Google thing that you get, and it's just a illustration in Marc's stories of how harsh it really is at these prisons. And now, of course, they've got him in one that's really nice. And at least he has amenities, he has a band that he plays with, and so they really tried to put him in a place where he wasn't complaining at all about anything. And they tried to give him as few things to complain about as possible.
Well, but he's in a medium security prison too.
Still
which
medium
is something.
Security, yeah. Rather than a low security.
Which is what he was sentenced for.
That's right. Yeah, he should be in a one that I don't know why
he shouldn't be in jail.
No, he shouldn't be in jail at all. And it's bizarre that the Canadian government didn't even really get a chance to say yay or nay on bringing him back because the U.S. government decided to keep them down there themselves.
That was awfully convenient for Harper, though, Didn't you think that was sort of convenient? Do you really think that Obama or that administration cares about Marc that much? I mean, I think that maybe somebody...
Gang president?
Maybe it was suggested to somebody that... maybe you could keep him for us for a bit. Because
I wouldn't doubt it at all.
Harper certainly, I think, he's very much on Harper's radar.
Yeah. Oh, I don't doubt it at all. And I think he really pissed the wrong people off. I think that's one of the main reasons he was sent down there in the first place.
Or the right people. I mean, it's again, maybe he pissed the wrong people off in terms of if he wanted to lead a comfortable life with his, beautiful, charming wife over the next 5 years, or if he wanted to make a huge political sacrifice that would move a movement forward.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the good and the bad that comes out of it, of course.
And this back and forth is kind of what I'm trying to get at the film.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating choices he's made. He's really made choices that have led him to prison, and I think that
He's
choice...
been in jail a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think
19.
Yeah, and I think he's done a lot of good by going to jail.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's part of his strategy, really. I mean, it's the form of activism that he's choosing. You push these things through the courts because the courts are really the only way. If you can't convince the politicians to change them, which really you can't. I mean, the ones that are there now are bought and paid for. They can't be convinced. So you have to force the system itself through the courts. Yeah. And Marc has been very successful in that regard.
I should mention David Malmo Levine while I mention the team of really significant activists.
Yeah.
And he
sacrificed himself.
He's also a great practicer of civil disobedience. I hope that other filmmakers and writers out there that are watching this too, that there's more stories to tell in this world, and I think it's important stories and interesting stories, and yeah.
Yeah, no, they're definitely each little thing you could focus on. I know we say that all the time. There's just so many things that happen down here that you analyze any one little piece and you have like an hour or 2 hour show right there.
Yeah.
We really should be doing one of those reality shows down here or something. But then there's
I had a friend who actually developed a reality show about Marc at one point, and then
there was some talk of that, wasn't it? I heard that some big company was involved or something at one point, and were interested in it. Yeah. No, I think there's just a few things that happen here that probably shouldn't be exposed on camera because of their sort of gray area legality, when it comes to not in this building necessarily, but just overall, what we're doing is, we do a lot of it on camera. We're here doing illegal things, possessing marijuana.
This is civil disobedience.
I have no medical
license. Which, by the way, I'm not practicing right now.
Things.
He is.
That's right. So,
I have to take this film to America.
Yes.
I didn't want to be stopped at the border.
But it's. I guess we have to think about our customers and our lounge and things like that as well. So putting a camera in their faces all the time. Although I guess Vapor Central doesn't have any problem. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's Toronto's
lounge. Toronto's,
yeah. We shot there.
Right.
Oh, just quickly, we shot all over the world. We shot all over North America. We shot in Boston. We went to Boston to interview Noam Chomsky. We went to Los Angeles to interview a number of people, including an old girlfriend of Marc's that's a prison activist.
Very cool.
And we went to, we spent a lot of time in Marc's hometown of London, Ontario. And we went down to Seattle, a bunch of places.
Cool, very cool. So there's a lot going on. Well, because Marc sort of left his mark in a lot of different places. Marc left his mark.
Indeed. I think he had a huge impact on America as well. Not as significant, but he did so much funding, so much core funding of not all the activists, but he was a significant funder of American activism for many years, and helped create a kind of infrastructure of activism that has led California to almost legalize marijuana. And he's also, I think, Colorado. Didn't you guys spend some money in Colorado, Greg?
We did so.
I remember on that municipal initiative, you guys spent money everywhere. I mean, it was all over the place, over and over again.
Legalization groups themselves, like the
so much money spent. I mean, that's a big thing. Is that one of the things we talk about in the movie is also Marc's ability to self-fund. and how significant that is. And it's
and his form of activism is using business. So he doesn't believe in getting donations and that kind of thing. He believes more in do it yourself, make that money, give some people something for their money, so it's a mutual benefit.
Yeah.
And then, but Marc is very selfless. He made millions of dollars and he gave every damn penny away.
I'm going to go back to what my movie's about here, because this thing of him being selfless, that's the funny thing is that he's an Ayn Rand style libertarian. And Ayn Rand doesn't believe in the idea of being selfless. She believes that everyone should be selfish. So part of why I could spend 6 years making a movie about Marc Emery and not get bored is because of those kind of contradictions. Is that Ayn Rand is his great guru, and yet he has been one of the most selfless political actors. And by political actors, I mean a person who's doing political things. One of the most most selfless, self-sacrificing political
using
actors.
His own body. What more can you say than that?
And yet, at the same time, championing what to me is a philosophy of selfishness. So how do we reconcile this stuff?
It is kind of a weird contradiction. It'll be an interesting juxtaposition of those two things to see on the big screen.
He's also. I also want to say that he's so funny. I mean, he tells great jokes, right? Sometimes at his own expense. He makes fun of his ego all the time. Like, I have great stuff where he's making fun of his own ego.
Yeah. Well, because he's often criticized about his big ego, right?
Oh, and we get into that like crazy.
Yeah.
And the girls, too.
Oh. So is Jody going to like this movie?
Well, Jody's going to like the movie because Jody is certainly is not one in a series of many, many women. There were many, many women. But Jody is, I think, really... Jody's different. And we make that clear in the film while putting her within a larger history of many, many beautiful women.
Yes.
Which is another appealing thing about the film, actually.
He will tell any of his history honestly. That's one of the things that I always admire about Marc is he's so honest. He's devastatingly honest sometimes.
Yeah.
And even to himself. Like, he causes sort of self-destructiveness with his honesty sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really, he is unique. Oh, that's right, I can't do that.
Oh, there's the ladies. Yeah, he is definitely... He'll tell you everything about himself with no sort of filter at all. Yeah.
So, again, he was a great, I feel very fortunate, blessed that, I had the opportunity to tell the story. And I think that, Marc and Jody and other people they'll certainly have disagreements with things that people in the film say, and they may think that I could have, it's not a puff piece,
Right.
Some people will
prefer
both sides of the argument. I prefer both sides of the argument,
Right.
etc.
That's fair.
But I think that people that think Marc's work is important are going to see the respect for that,
right,
and like the film,
excellent,
and be entertained.
Yes. Well, and so are we going to have you back as things get close?
Maybe when we have the trailer.
That would be great.
When we have the trailer, you can...
There's actually a little website up on that Cinema Vault
thing,
and it has like a spot where there was a trailer, and you would just press it, and it's been an error the entire time that I think.
Yeah, you can't, because we don't want it up yet, because we're still tuning that.
I see.
It's all very fussy work.
Yes, of course.
6 years. We're not going to just shove it out the door.
No.
But we're on a deadline, fall.
Okay. And so you said festivals as well. So is there a plan? Do you know which festivals it might go into?
I don't know which festival it's going into, but we are holding out to get into one of the major international film festivals. So we're not going to, we'll see. It's tough. It's tremendous suspense, right? We're in suspense now. We did a screening for a major film festival, which we hope to get into. We think that after all this work and effort, and also how much the great reception the film's had already, because in addition to selling the film, pre-selling the film in all these ways, we also got a ton of money from Telefilm to finish the film after we showed them a cut.
Oh, really?
So
cool.
People are digging the movie. So we don't want to let it just sort of...
Who narrates the movie? You?
I narrate the movie currently.
Right.
But we are trying to get a movie star of, great repute and with sympathy to legalization of marijuana to narrate it. There are a couple out there who, and we may not get them. You know, and here I you know, but you know, guys, it's okay. I sound okay. I'm not a movie star, but I don't screw it up. I don't get in the way of and we had a great sound team, top sound team. There's a lot of craft on this film. It's not a little documentary. Right. You know, before Marc went to prison, we shot in what was the biggest soundstage in North America for many years, a place called Bridge Studio in Vancouver, where they originally a huge bridge factory, and you know, we had great commitment from the community too. I mean, we rented huge cranes and stuff for that day, and had the biggest smoke machine in the city, and
has the technology changed over that period? I know it has. I mean, has it changed for you guys? Are you using the same equipment you were in 2006? Or
oh God, no. God, no. No, the stuff we shot in the big studio was on the Red camera. So we did a major interview with Marc, a 5-hour interview with Marc, the longest I'd ever gotten him to sit down on time for it, okay. Which we still had to give him to the CBC in the middle for an hour.
Wow.
But anyway, I'm not complaining. It worked out great.
At CBC.
Yeah, they got a lot of sway.
I even have, look at that.
Oh, there they are.
Pocket right there.
Don't show the number on camera. They'll get calls. Yeah. But we shot with what's called a Red, which is a huge movie camera, huge video movie camera, like a 35mm camera. And then at the same time, when we were doing interviews, we were able to shoot with a little Sony camera that was still had the technology that allowed it to be blown up to the big screen. Right. So it's really amazing technology. The 4K camera that we shot with, we're able to do digital zooms that you can't see, because it's like double high def. It's high def times 2.
Cool.
It's actually yeah.
So it's going to look good on the big screen.
It's going to look amazing.
Awesome. Well, excellent, my friend. Is there a website or anything that you would drop for more people to go for more information or anything like that?
You know, on Facebook soon we're going to have a Citizen Marc page. We'll come back and we'll announce that stuff. Okay, cool. I'm still focused on the movie. I'll get the marketing side together. Thankfully, there's a company in Toronto working on that, and we'll coordinate with them, and we'll get back to you on that.
Who designed the poster? It's actually kind of cool. I put it in the show notes today, actually.
Yeah, they did. I mean, these guys are great. Cinema Vault is a wonderful distributor. They're one of the biggest Canadian distributors. They have a major international presence. They're always at the major markets, and yeah, their in-house designer did that, and cool. Their in-house trailer editor is working on the trailer right now in collaboration with us, and so we'll have all that stuff coming along soon.
Cool. I'm excited.
Thanks so much.
Roger, thanks
Appreciate
a lot,
you having
we'll
me
have
on.
You back again for sure.
Thanks for all the support
and
while we were making the film.
Thanks for all the hard work
too.
you guys been doing. Oh, I just know I've been here for some of the things that you guys have been here for. So there's some juicy nuggets there.
There are indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Cool, man.
All the best.
We'll have you back. Thanks a lot, man. Roger Larry, director of Citizen Marc. And we didn't even really talk about the title that much, but of course it's based on the play of the same title, but of course the play was based on Citizen Kane, I would imagine. I mean, it's an obvious reference to the title Citizen Kane, with the movie by Orson Welles. Maybe you want to talk about that? Come back and talk. You should talk about that for a second.
You know, I describe our film, the big influence describe our film as Citizen Kane meets Spinal Tap. But there's also elements of Michael Moore's Sicko and Errol Morris's Fog of War, which was about Robert McNamara, which to me is the great biopic of all time. And those films really influenced us. But so because we move between political seriousness and real comedy.
So why the title exactly? Is it just based because of the play, or
well, because you know, because of Charles Foster Kane's quest in Citizen Kane is similar, I believe, in certain ways to Marc Emery's psychological quest. But I would say that unlike Kane, who is based on Hearst, Kane's legacy is empty, and Marc's is far from it.
Excellent. All right, man.
Bye.
Thanks for bringing that back again. We'll talk to you soon, man. Awesome. That was excellent, Roger Larry. We'll keep you guys posted on Citizen Marc, of course. There'll definitely be anything whispers, anything will be on the front page of Cannabis Culture as soon as we know it. And so, Marius, I think I want to play the video of Jody at Idea City. So Jody Emery was invited to speak at Moses Znaimer's Idea City. Moses Znaimer, the guy who was the founder of Chum TV and Much Music and a lot of Canadian sort of alternative style media that was quite popular. I think he's now sold all of that off, unfortunately. But he does this Idea City thing every year where a lot of notable people come and give great speeches and kind of mingle and share information and that kind of thing. So this is a kind of a cool thing for Jody to be invited to and speak at. Now we do have that video. Marius, that's in the queue. Do you have that ready to roll? I have it ready to roll. Nice. Okay. Well, let's check this out. Jody at Idea.
Most of you know that Marc Emery is in fact sitting in an American jail right now for doing what was on open display in this city about a week ago at the Treating Yourself marijuana festival, where the world's best purveyors of seeds and various kinds of marijuana paraphernalia were on open display at the local convention center. Marijuana is the most widely used illegal drug in the world, and its rates of use are increasing. A 2006 UN World Drug Report suggests that there is an estimated 164 million people worldwide that use cannabis. And the market is estimated variously at up to $100 billion a year. At the same time, American statistics suggest that marijuana laws have imprisoned 20 million Americans since 1965. That's an astonishing number. That's the entire province of Ontario and the entire province of Quebec. And if the usual 10-to-1 rule applies, then something in the order of 2 million Canadians have variously had their lives ruined by marijuana legislation. Even if it's half that, it's a preposterous number. So to carry on this discussion, I've invited Jody Emery, who is Marc Emery's wife and who is carrying his flag while he sits out his time in an American jail. This is Jody Emery.
I have to admit, just seeing him up on the screen, I miss him. I miss him a lot. Marc has led a life of civil disobedience. He started here in Ontario when Sunday shopping was illegal. He opened his bookstore, City Lights, in London, and gave away books for free, daring the police to come arrest him. And he did the same right before Christmas, and he continued to try opening his store on Sundays, and he did go to jail for opening his store on a Sunday. Part of his efforts and the efforts of others led to Sunday shopping laws being struck down so that you guys can go get your coffee and groceries on Sunday here in this province. And he also moved on to other civil disobedience. He found out that Two Live Crew, a rap group, was illegal in Canada. You could not buy their Nasty As They Want to Be record because it was too nasty for the Canadian government. And he brought that album into Canada, took an ad in the paper and said, come on down and arrest me, let's go to court so I can demonstrate that this is an absurd law and needs to be changed. And he did that, and he did get arrested, and he did go to court. And he did the same with marijuana literature. There was a time when just having a pamphlet about marijuana would get you more punishment than possession of marijuana. You could not provide information about marijuana without being punished. He decided to bring up the book, Jack Herrera's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and sell that, and High Times magazine, and he sold that, and continued to try and fight these laws by breaking them and demonstrating that it was absurd that these laws even existed. He was very successful in these ways. Like Moses said, Marc Emery's Treating Yourself Expo just happened, and you had seeds being sold, and you had books and magazines available, you've got bongs and pipes. And all of that is due to Marc Emery's bravery. Marc moved to Vancouver in 1994 and decided, our movement needs money. The prohibitionists have taxpayers' dollars, unlimited amounts, and they use it. They use it on guns, they use it on cops, they use it on prisons. And he said our movement needs money. And he decided to start selling marijuana seeds. Nobody else was selling seeds to Americans. That's a crazy idea. But Marc has a lot of crazy ideas that are really for the good of everyone. And part of that was to sell these seeds and promise everyone who bought those seeds that all the money would go back into legalization efforts. So over about 10 years, he started in 1994 and was arrested in 2005. But in that time period, he sold millions and millions of seeds to every country around the world, to every state in the United States. And these seeds not only helped people who are sick and dying find the relief that they needed from medical marijuana, but the money that was spent on those seeds went towards ballot initiatives to make medical marijuana legal in states like Colorado and Washington, D.C. That money went towards challenging the Canadian government in a Supreme Court challenge that went all the way up with David Malma Levine, and unfortunately, cannabis users were deemed to have no more rights than cannibals. Marc financed political parties, the BC Marijuana Party, the Marijuana Party of Canada, the U.S. Marijuana Party, Greenleaf Party of Israel, marijuana parties all over, and not just a party to get high, but political parties to run in elections and to bring this issue to the forefront. He used that money for publishing Cannabis Culture magazine. He started Pot TV, which was video streaming on the on the internet before that even began. I think it was CBC and Pot TV had launching parties together saying, wow, we've got video on the internet, isn't that amazing? So Marc spent money getting information out there, financing medical marijuana cases for many people who were sick or dying and suffering, and they had been facing prison or some sort of punishment, and Marc used money to that end. Marc spent money on so many different activist efforts and campaigns that literally he cannot even remember them all. We get people writing to him saying, you gave me $5,000 for a conference, or you gave me $1,000 to hire a lawyer. And he says, well, that's wonderful, because over that time period, he gave away millions of dollars. Millions. All of it. Marc was not in the business of selling seeds to make money for himself. The day he was arrested, he had $11 in his bank account. The DEA admitted he had nothing. They didn't even fine him, because they know how to look for money if you've got it hidden away, and he doesn't, and he didn't, and they knew that. But the DEA, in questioning Marc's co-accused, were just scratching their heads. They couldn't believe, out of all the people they'd ever arrested and ever dealt with who were drug dealers, they always stashed money. But not Marc, because that wasn't the point, to keep it for himself. The point was to finance a fight against one of the greatest human rights crises going on in the world. Every single day, every single minute, all day today, people's lives are being destroyed. Every single day, people who have never hurt anyone else, are facing prison, are facing the loss of their job, the loss of their children, the loss of their home, the loss of their freedom, the loss of their health, because of these laws. Marijuana does not hurt people anywhere near as much as the war on drugs and the war on marijuana hurts people. Marc was arrested in 2005 in Canada. Marc gave away all that money. He ran for office, very well known across Canada, sent his seed catalogs to every member of parliament, and paid income taxes. Over $500,000 he paid, and they kept saying, how's the seed business going? You got more money? He was so upfront, you could call him up on his cell phone if you wanted to know where your seeds were. And he didn't leave Canada, as he said. But we didn't think that the U.S. would come into Canada and take him away. He never left Canada, and he was facing life, which for him at his age meant death in prison when they arrested him. When the DEA arrested him, they bragged in their press release, and you can see this, the official document on the front page of freemarc with a C.ca. The DEA press release said, today's arrest of Marc Scott Emery is a significant blow to the marijuana legalization movement. Marc Emery has been deemed one of the most wanted international drug kingpins and the only one from Canada. This is a man who never sold drugs. He only sold seeds to finance the revolution, but the DEA admitted in their own press release that it was all about the money, it was all about the activism. They didn't even use the word seeds in their press release. That was pointed to by many as evidence that he's a political prisoner, and many people do believe that he is. He was extradited in 2010. He had two co-accused. Many of you here who are regulars know of Michelle Rainey, who passed away from cancer, who worked very strongly. She fought for years, and she suffered greatly. Many people suffer from disease and sickness and even just sadness, and they find relief from using marijuana. They never hurt anyone else, but they all face persecution, punishment, arrest, the loss of their life, the loss of their liberty. Every single day in the United States, SWAT teams are raiding houses, killing dogs, terrorizing children, destroying lives, at a cost of millions of dollars every year. In fact, the U.S. has spent over $1 trillion on the war on drugs. Marijuana is more readily available and more used than ever before. And that money should be going to education, to health care, to anything and everything except putting harmless people in prison. In the United States right now, 1 out of 100 Americans are behind bars. Half of those in prison are for drug offenses. Those prisoners would not be in prison, and they would not be criminals if it was not criminal to possess, to grow, to deal in these drugs. Every single day around the world, people die from alcohol, tobacco, pharmaceutical pills, peanuts, water, cars. People die from all sorts of things. Hammers. Should we put people in prison for those things? Of course we shouldn't. So why does the war on drugs continue? Why is the war on marijuana continuing? Why is the Harper government implementing the law that they just passed through, the Omnibus Crime Bill, for mandatory minimums, when mandatory minimum sentences in the United States have led to a mass civil rights violation of so many people being put away at a huge cost we cannot afford, especially not in this economy? Why does that war continue all the way down into Colombia, all the way over into Afghanistan? Why does the war on drugs go on when there are legal drugs at London Drugs and Shoppers Drug Mart? You have all these drugs available, and yet CEOs of Pfizer, they're not put in prison. They have blood on their hands. Marc Emery, my husband, he never hurt a soul. And most of those prisoners behind bars for marijuana have never hurt anyone either. And many of them themselves are sick and suffering and dying. This is a serious, serious crisis. People sometimes say to me, what are you doing trying to legalize marijuana? Why don't you do something more important like trying to end world hunger? Well, I'd like to tell them, like I'm telling you now, that lives are being destroyed. My husband was facing a mandatory minimum of 30 years to life in prison in the United States for selling seeds to finance a movement. He took a plea deal for 5 years. He admitted he was guilty. He was all over 60 Minutes, CNN, Wall Street Journal, Rolling Stone. Marc Emery is recognized worldwide as probably the biggest name in marijuana activism because he earned it. He did go to prison many times. He refused to shut down his store. He refused to stop giving the information about marijuana, and he refused to stop advocating for its use. He has seen, as I have seen, the harm caused. Can you imagine if someone you knew and loved was sick and suffering and dying, and they found relief only through marijuana, and suddenly the cops come to their door, and they couldn't get their doctor to sign their paper because the Health Canada program certainly is a shoddy program that doesn't meet everyone's need. But can you imagine if your loved one was facing prison for never hurting anyone else? That's what we really need to get across here. These laws against marijuana, prohibition in general, causes more harm than does the substance itself. And the Canadian Senate Special Committee on Illegal Drugs found that marijuana should be legal for everyone 16 and older. That marijuana prohibition causes more harm than does the substance itself. So why does it continue? Why do people keep going to prison? Why does Marc still have over 2 years left to serve in a U.S. federal prison in Mississippi? Because of cruelty. Part of it is because of money. The private prison industry in the United States lobbies against legalization because they know that that will mean fewer prisoners behind bars. I don't know if there's much more out there that's more immoral and unjust than making $1 on the stock market through Geo Group Prison Corporation, which is now in Canada, by the way, lobbying with this government right now, today. Those companies, they're on the stock market making money off of putting people behind bars, ruining their lives, taking children away from their fathers. When I visit Marc in Mississippi in this medium security federal prison, thankfully he was moved there, instead of being in the private prison that he was kicked out of for blogging about how bad it was. Marc can't keep his mouth closed. Like, they've learned their lesson. You can't punish this guy. You got to just make it a little less horrible so he won't have as much to complain about. But Marc is in that prison, and I go down there and visit, and I see little tiny children running up to their daddy. Daddy, daddy, daddy. Go running up to him and jump into his arms because they don't get to see him. And those are the children lucky enough to see their father. Those are the children whose mother is willing to make the trip, make the expense, bring her children to spend a couple hours with their daddy that they don't get to see. I got a phone call just recently from a guy named Dimitri. He spent the last 20-some-odd years of his life in the United States, has a family, lots of kids. Everything he's ever known is in the United States. He was in prison with Marc. He took some pot over a border within the U.S. He is being shipped off to the Ukraine, where he was born, which he never knew. He has nothing, no family, nothing there. He's being put on a plane. He called me up and said, Jody, I'm here at this horrible detention facility, which is where they place non-Americans. That's where Marc was, in these private prisons, in these immigration prisons, where there are human rights violations you would not believe. And he called me and said, this place is horrible, and I'm being put on a plane, and I'm being sent away. That man never hurt anyone else. That man could have contributed to society. That man could have held down a job, paid his taxes like he wanted to, but instead his life is ruined. His family's life is ruined. Society in general has been harmed by his persecution for marijuana. And like I said, there are so many harmful things out there, and if you think marijuana should be illegal because it's harmful, then every one of us has to live in a bubble and not even breathe the air because you might catch a cold, because everything out in the world may be dangerous, but you should only punish those who hurt others. For me, the reason this is such an important issue is that these laws are literally killing people, depriving them of their freedom, depriving them of being able to contribute, and this is at a cost of billions of dollars. Harper's own plans here in Canada, billions of dollars on prisons, on unreported crime, on marijuana crime, because Harper declared a culture war. He said he's going after the marijuana users, and he is. We don't even know the impact that that's going to have. A couple years from now, when Marc is back and hopefully a guest again at Idea City, he'll tell you how much Canada has changed under this government, this corrupt government that I believe is illegitimate because there's a lot of election fraud. But this government likes to punish. They know that this is not about getting rid of marijuana. They know all the statistics, all the evidence, all the proof shows that keeping something illegal does not make it safer. It does not get rid of it. In fact, it enriches gangs, and that is really criminal. That organized crime and criminals around the world are making billions of dollars while you, the taxpayer, pays billions of dollars to keep them rich. Politicians and anyone who supports prohibition is supporting organized crime. That is a fact. Prohibition funds organized crime. They do not make their money in the legal market. If you want to deprive that organized crime of the billions of dollars they get, let's bring that industry into the legal economy. And we've seen in the United States a lot of progress. You know, the first question to start here was, are you optimistic or pessimistic? Well, in some cases I'm very pessimistic. I've seen that it's getting worse. In some cases I'm optimistic. You've got legalization and ballots on the initiatives on the ballot in the United States. Washington State, my husband's own prosecutor, John McKay, is backing a legalization initiative. There is progress, and it's not just potheads who want it legal, it's politicians too. It's healthcare professionals, law enforcement officials, and the general public at large. But you need to do something. The big idea here, we all agree marijuana should be legal, I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but we need to do something about it. That means actually taking action, getting on the street with a sign, writing a letter, talking to your friends, calling up your member of parliament or your MLA or whatever your political representative is and telling them, this is something that needs to end, and you're the one with the power, and you know what the people want, and we pay your bills, so you better do as we ask. And that's what I would ask of Harper. This drug war has caused far more damage than you can even begin to imagine. And unless we do something to stop it, it will continue to get worse. And people like my husband, who have never hurt anyone else, will be hurt in ways that you can't even imagine. And again, I miss Marc terribly. To not have him at home with me is heartbreaking, to say the least. My man deserves to be home, and so do all the other prisoners of the drug war. And every person like Michelle Rainey and others who suffer should be free to use marijuana in peace without the threat of arrest or persecution in any way whatsoever. So do something about it. Thank you.
Just might be labeled legalization, but just worse than going like a step back. We want to know, identify. Okay, you hit the bong while I blab on. This is my rant. This is my 2 cents. This is what's going on in my head right now, so I'm going to share it all with you. Okay, a step forward would mean less people going to jail and more freedoms, like the freedom to grow and the freedom to sell and that sort of thing. That has to be measured not by complete prohibition, but by what medical rights we've already won. So when you compare what they're offering you to, make sure it doesn't take away any medical rights that you already have, and that it's at least as good, if not better. Well, probably it should be better to get our support. It can't be the same, because we can't be stagnant and then it just seems like legalization is happening when nothing's happening. So for example, Uruguay. They're talked about it on the show today. Okay, they're talking about limiting the number of joints per month to 40, and then putting in some sort of treatment program if you go to like smoke 41 joints a day.
And it said in the press reports that I saw, just to interrupt for a second, it said that it's already legal there, or it's not illegal to smoke or possess marijuana there in Uruguay, is what the Associated Press article was saying.
So it could be some sort of Portuguese fatal compromise where it forces more people into treatment than ever before.
Why didn't we know about Uruguay? I'm just wondering.
It just started. Like, they've been talking, but
about it not being illegal already. I didn't realize that they had such liberal laws in Uruguay when it came to marijuana.
Well, I mean, there's a million,
or any laws at all.
Million flavors of decrim out there, and not all of them are bragged about because no one wants to get the attention of the U.S. government.
Right. Now, as part of what they said, I noted this on the show, they're saying that they would like everybody over the world to adopt this policy, and they're actually coming out and sort of getting behind that idea.
Yeah, well, I don't think, you smoke 40 joints and you're all right, and you smoke 41, you need treatment. I can't see us, we can support them legalizing it in terms of having growers that don't go to jail and they get licensed to grow, but that market should be open to everyone. There shouldn't be a monopoly on that. There shouldn't just be 5 designated legal growers and everybody else gets rounded up.
That last part, I'm not really sure. In the second set of news reports that I read about the whole thing, it didn't mention the part about the actual joint limit. It said some other stuff, but I'm not really sure how rock solid that is. It might be a little preliminary, but yeah, it's a weird thing that they would have.
You don't have a coffee bean limit. There's no 10 cups of coffee per week.
Doesn't make sense.
No,
and at such an arbitrary level, like 40 joints,
yeah. Like, who's to say how big those joints are going to be, too? It's so stupid. So,
there you go.
We can support them legalizing it, but at the same time be critical of the stupidity and keep fighting till we get the same equality as coffee beans. Now, let's talk about Washington State for a second there, because that's clearly a step backwards. Washington State has medical marijuana rights, and they would be basically shutting down all the dispensaries and replacing them with state or liquor, the booze salesmen taking over the industry, basically.
Would it actually shut down all of those dispensaries, though?
Well, those ones are illegal.
Right, but they're illegal now.
Well, I know, but whenever a few people conspire to make all the money off an industry, they usually get away with it if they can. I don't trust any consolidation of the industry. There should be, mom and pa have to be at the table for me to support that form of legalization.
It just sounds like the idea of pot stores everywhere. That sounds like a good idea to me.
But it's not pot stores. It's your dealer going out of business and the local
I just don't believe that
cold beer store.
Those people will continue to do what they have been
doing.
doing.
No, because their market, their consumers would go buy the legal pot at the legal store. And they'll go out of business, and the cold beer store will get rich.
But that's
I'm
breaks,
in
though.
it.
That's the breaks.
No, it's not the breaks. It's you get what you
Marius,
settle for.
I'm hearing some feedback. Can you maybe unplug those headphones or something? Sure. That's better. There we go.
It's about the whole reason why we fight to legalize pot isn't to get high. We can already get high. It's so that mom and pa dealer and mom and pa grower get to now do what they already do, except without fearing going to jail.
Well, that's a different political philosophy than the one I'm talking about, which is, an open and free market of pot where people can compete is what I'd ultimately like to see. But I'm not.
Do you think it'll just naturally flow from monopoly into a free market?
Well, no, but I would say that. So, we got to choose here. The world out there is this capitalistic nightmare. So do we want pot to be part of the rest of the world? We kind of are saying that we do. So when we're bringing legalization, it might fit that. I understand what you're saying. You want it to fit a model that fits something along the lines of your political philosophy. But
I just don't want to
some people just want to fight for it to be just like normal like everything else
is. Normal like everything else
Don't you think we should work on one at a time kind of thing?
Well, okay, let's look at industrial hemp, right? When we were all hemp activists in the early to mid-90s, we were promising, it's going to replace all the cutting down of trees because it makes far better paper, and it'll replace all the pesticides being used on cotton because it makes much better clothes, and so forth and so on. And what happened? A few sellouts sold us out, accepted double standards and over-regulation, and now the only breeders allowed to breed hemp in Canada have to have a science degree and 10 years apprenticeship under
over-regulation.
Another breeder. And it makes the price of seeds artificially high. Farmers can't grow their own seeds and supply themselves with their own seeds. So the only market you end up having for industrial hemp, because of the costs, is for food.
So the argument is then that because that was a partial form of legalization of hemp.
Because you compromised, because you accepted a fatal compromise, you ended up not getting 90% of the benefits that you were arguing was the value.
Can't we still fight for those now?
Why you fight for them now by fighting over-regulation in the social and medicinal hemp market. Now, if you eliminate over-regulation in those markets, you can eliminate it in industrial hemp too. But if you don't, I know you got time. Anyway, don't let the medicinal and social and recreational pot markets resemble today's Canadian hemp market. Otherwise, everything's going to suck, and they're still going to be cutting down all the trees, and you're still going to be throwing mom and pa in jail. And I'm not settling for anything other than complete freedom and equality for mom and pa grower and mom and pa dealer. And I'll keep fighting, even if other activists quit. I will keep fighting for their rights. It happens to be your rights, because, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Anyway, I'll leave you with that thought.
David Melmo Levine's much valued opinion always on this show. Thanks, David.
I'm in. I'm out.
Bring us an artifact on your next appearance.
Yeah. Let's schedule it.
All right.
Hey, we'll talk about Cannabis Day. We'll have the website
of course. So I wanted to note that Cannabis Day, of course, July 1st here in Vancouver. The Vancouver Art Gallery will play host to Cannabis Day. There will be other Cannabis Days, I imagine, at other places across Canada. But I'm not really sure how huge they'll be. Vancouver's going to be pretty big, pretty kick-ass. Again, it's the open farmers market of cannabis where anybody can come down, and whether you have a license or not, you can buy as much weed as you want. People are setting up tents where they're selling all kinds of crazy stuff. Guys with Tuna Kush signs standing out right on the corner, right next to police officers. It's a sight to see for sure. So I guess that's the end of this show, guys. Thanks for watching. Next, we have the Paparazzi Girls. Paparazzi Girls are going to do a special edition here on Friday. Usually their show's on Thursday at 4 p.m., but they're just back from vacation, the ladies. And so I guess they'll have lots to talk about. They haven't done a show for a while, so should be interesting. And Marius, I guess you're going to take care of biz while we hit you guys later. I'll see you guys next week on my show next Friday, 4 p.m. again. And, of course, there's lots of Pot TV shows on Pot TV all week, live shows and recorded shows. So check out the front page of pot.tv. More videos, crazy videos, as high as you can get on the net. All right. Thanks, guys. Peace. Marius, take us out of here.